Hi,
My name's JC McCauley.
I'm Naisha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. I am so glad to be back. I hope you're glad to be back to Miss Cleo's Storytelling Corner, because I'm certainly very happy to be back to tell you and share stories with you from around the world. This morning, and I was thinking, this is the first morning I'm kind of back doing stories, and it was a little nerve-wracking this morning, but I think I have it together. And if I don't, please give Stan a call and bug him about it. Okay, this morning the first story I'm going to tell is a story from Japan. And I thought of this story as I'm going through the pages looking up stories. I was thinking about so many things in nature that we just don't pay attention to. Well, this was a woman that lived in Japan, and every morning she would go out with her spirit guide, and she would just be with her spirit guide. She was so devoted that one day the spirit guide left her a present. When she walked into the woods, she saw this very nice little green hat. And her spirit kind of said, "Put it on." And she put that hat on. And she was amazed. She could hear the birds' conversation. She understood the animals, the trees. She understood all the world around her, and she just listened in wonder. And one day she was listening, and she heard these two little birds talk. She said, "You know, there, that tree, that maple tree. Oh, it is so sad." She would hear a little murmur when she put on the hat, but she didn't know what it was. And she says, "You know that the governor cut down the tree so he could make a coffee house, a tea house there. And underneath, the roots of the tree are still alive and is crying. And it is sick. And you know that the governor got sick around the same time that he cut down the tree." And there was this little murmur under the ground where the roots were going, "I am dying. I am dying." And the bird said, "It is so sad. But the governor, he is sick also. And when those roots die, he will also die." Well, when the woman heard this, she went to the governor's house. She dressed as a traveling physician, and she went to his door, and she knocked on the door. And the wife said, "Oh, please come in. Come in. My husband is very sick." And the woman said, Take me to him." And she looked upon the man and she said to the wife, before I can help him, he must cut down that tea house. And he must nurture and bring back that tree, because the tree is not dead. You must bring back the tree before I can help your husband. And she said, yes, yes. And she ordered that the tea house be cut down immediately. And then she serviced her husband and said, you will be strong now. You will get well. And she told his wife how to care for him. And then she left the house. And as time went on, he got well. Better and better each day. And each day, there was a little breakthrough through the ground as the roots started to grow and the tree started to come up again. And when the man was very well and very strong, he went out to the garden and he nurtured that garden himself. And he called for the woman and gave her a handful of gold. She was a poor woman, but no longer, as she went away with a smile on her face and a handful of gold. Now that is the end of that little story. So just to remind you, everything around you is alive. The trees are alive. The grass is alive. Pay attention to the birds and to the animals. There's so much around you that is nature that we don't even look at each and every day. It'd calm your spirit if you just paid attention to the day. And thank you for having this beautiful, beautiful day. Because everything works with everything else to make life good for all of us. So remember that when you walk out in the morning. Don't just run to your car. Look at the day. Say good morning to the trees. I say that to my granddaughter all the time. Did you say good morning to the trees? She says, yeah, Grandma, I said good morning to the trees. Remember nature. I have another story for you. It's the lion's whisker. There are so many stories about the lion's whisker. So many lion whisker stories. There's someone, the man and the woman gets married and they have, the man, the husband has a child and he marries this woman and she has a problem with the child. But this particular one is a man and a woman get married. And the man is not very happy with this marriage. He is not adapting to this marriage at all. And the woman, she's not very happy either. Because her husband, she knows her husband is not happy and he's not acting right or doing right. He would go to work and stay all day, and sometimes he wouldn't even come home. Some of us know how that is. And she was miserable and he was miserable. So she went to the old wise man and she says, you married us 2 years ago. I want you to end this marriage. My husband is miserable. I am miserable. This marriage did not work. And the old man just kind of looks at her. It did not, no, it is not working. He said, I can make a potion. I can make a little potion for you. That would probably make your husband love you and treat you wonderful. Oh, she says, please, make it. Give it to me right away. He says, well, I just need one ingredient. Oh, and she says, well, what is that? What is that you need? I will get it for you. What is that? And he said, well, I need the whisker of a live lion. Well, this woman was so happy that there was something that could help her marriage that she says, I will get it for you. I will get it for you. Don't worry. I will be back. So she went home and she packed a bag and she bought this big piece of meat and she went up to the mountains. And she found a lion and she threw him this big piece of meat. And he ate it up in about 3 bitefuls, just ate it up really quickly. Couple of mouthfuls and that meat was gone and he went back into the woods. The next day, she came again. And she threw him another piece of meat. And he ate it up quickly. And the next day, and the next day, for 2 weeks she came. And she gave him meat every day. And that lion got comfortable and is expecting that meat every day. And by the end of the 2nd week, she went right up to him and put down that meat. And as he was eating, she plucked a whisker from him. He did not even feel it. He was so comfortable and relaxed. And she ran as fast as she could to the wise old man, and she says, I have it. Now make me my portion. And the old man sat back and looked at her. And he was kind of surprised that she had it. And she said, you must tell me how you got this whisker. And she told him all that she had done to get this whisker. And the old man was silent for a while, and he said, you don't need a potion. And she looked at him. You promised me a potion. He said, you don't need a potion. Do what you did to get this. Do what you did to get the whisker. Be patient and steadfast, and every day do something for your husband. Do things that make him know that you love him. And the woman looked at the old man and she walked away. But she did what he asked. She did what he told her to do. She was patient. She did not get angry with her husband. And she did things to make sure that he knew that she cared for him. And that's the kind of the end of the story on this lion's whisker. But what do you think happened with her patience and not getting mad? And showing her husband that she really really loved him. Well, I think the story goes that they lived happily ever after. I know some of you were laughing, and some of you were saying, uh-huh. You think I'm going to do that? You know what that man did to me? You know what that man said to me? You know blah, 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 blah? Yeah, I've been there too, sister. But let me tell you, patience and showing someone that you care does a lot of good. Now, I'm not saying it'll help everybody, but it'll help a whole lot of us. And that story goes for the men too. That goes to the men too. You might have an ornery wife, and you may need that patience too, and that loving care too. And that's a story of the lion's whisker. Just think of it. When you get mad and you want to, go get a lion's whisker and change that attitude. Peace and love. And that's the story of a lion's whisker. It's a different one than I usually tell. It's a different one. But I liked it because it's about relationships. And one of the hardest things in the world is a relationship. So, I'm going to tell you one more story before we go on our break. And let me see what that one is. The spirit. Oh. There is a old story. This story is actually thousands of years old. No, I think I'm going to save that story for after the break. We're going to take a break right now, and I'm going to tell you this story right after we have just a short break. See you in a minute. Don't go away.
Hi, my name is Cammie Starks. I would recommend any parent to participate in this program due to the fact that it helps us learn about what the kids are learning and also to better our children in the community. And I just give thanks to those, Lucy, that recommended me to come to the program, and it's just been an honor and finding out the development of the children of the school systems that's very needed. And I just give thanks, and I ask that any parent, friends, family to, participate, because it's very helpful to find out what's going on with the children and also to help the children. And I just give thanks.
Hello, good afternoon. I am Larissa Roan, and I just wanted to stop by real quick to say thank you to Millie and the Hartford Parent University for the opportunity of us graduating the class of 2023 this afternoon. And I just wanted to touch on the importance of having parent facilitators going out into the community, engaging with parents, because we all know the importance of advocacy and advocating for our children. So I just want to submit to everyone that's watching and listening to this, you're a parent, and even if you're an aunt, an uncle, whatever the case is, join this process and be involved and go out and advocate for our children, because they are the future, and we believe in change and implementing things that our children will have to live with and deal with sometime in the near future. So I advocate because of that very purpose, and I just submit to any and everyone to get involved. Let's advocate because our children's lives depend on it. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Hola, mi nombre es Rosy.
Welcome back. I'm a little slow on the uptake. Give me a little time here. Next week I will be a little faster on the uptake. You know, I hope I'm looking at you now. Stan just told me I wasn't looking at you. I was looking at myself. That's why I wasn't doing. I said these stories aren't right. Of course they're not right. I'm looking at me. Now I'm gonna look at you now. Much better, much better. All right, we're gonna do the story of Damon and Parthesius. It's an old ancient Greek story, and I have to do this slowly. Like long ago, a powerful king named Dionysus ruled the island of Sicily. Dionysus was as cruel as he was strong, and had made many enemies among the Greeks. And he was afraid that he was going to be assassinated. And he was right. There was a young man who knew that he had to get rid of this leader because he was horrible and he was cruel. And so he decided that he would assassinate him. And this was Parthesius. He was a honorable young man, and his thinking was not very clear at that time. So, on his attempt to kill the king, he was captured before he could do it, and he was sentenced to death. Well, the king said, "What do you have to say for yourself?" And Parthesius said, "Well, if you could only give me 5 days so I could go home and clear up my business and say goodbye to my parents as a good son should do, then I will come back and take my sentence. I will come back." The king looked around and said, "What? Do you think I think that you will come back? You will not come back. What do you think I am?" "Please," Parthesius said, "please." The king said, "I will do this if you have a friend that will take your place. Do you have someone that will take your place on the gallows?" And there was a voice from the crowd says, "I will." And his name was Damon. I will take his place." The king said, "Are you crazy? He will not come back. He will escape to a different country. He will not come back." And Damon said, "He will come back. Let him say goodbye to his family. Let him get his business in order." "Take him," the king said. "Very well. You may go, but I know you are not coming back." So Parthesius rushed to his village, and he sold his house, and he got all his affairs in order in 2 days, and after 2 days he walked to his parents' home, which would take him almost 3 days to get there. And when he did, there was a sadness in the house, and his parents cried and hugged him, and he said goodbye to them. And he had just a little time, and it was getting closer and closer, and the king would say to Damon, "You were crazy. He is never coming back." And it was getting closer and closer to the time, and the kingsman was getting ready to behead him. And Papithius, he kept going and he kept going. And when he got to the bridge was washed out, and he couldn't get across. And he tried up, and he couldn't get across upriver, and he didn't know how to get across and how to get back. And he ran, and the time was passing. And the king said, "Did I not tell you? He will not be back." And Damon said, "Yes, he will be back. He is my friend. He is an honorable man, and he will be back." And the time got closer and closer. And they put Damon up against the gallows and put his head down. "You will see," said the king. And even though his head was at the gallows, he kept saying, "He will come. I know he will come." And just as the hangsman put up his hands and was about to bring them down, Papithius came running through the crowd, exhausted and falling to the ground. The king could not believe it. "You actually came back." He could not believe it. And then he walked up to the gallows and he took his place. And the king said, No. A friendship like that, courage like that, should not be destroyed. You both shall live." And both Papithius and Damon walked away. That is an old, old story. The king did not believe. He did not believe there was any such thing as a friendship that strong. But there are friendships that strong. And there has been many a person who has given their life for a friend. Do you have a friend like that? Any of you have a friend like that? Think about it. You have a friend that you would give your life for? It's something to think about, isn't it? I think I have a friend like that who I would give my life for. But of course, I'm not sure. The moment is not here. And it may be different when the time comes, but I believe that I do. We have a story, our next story, that's really, it is called, let's see, the Pig Prince. It is called The Pig Prince. And this is a story. Once upon a time, it's a once upon a time story about a king and a queen who had no children. And queen wanted a child so badly. But it seemed it was not to be. And one day she took a walk in the garden. And she sat down and she fell asleep. And there were 3 fairies that came and watched her sleep. And they said, yes, we should give her a child. She should have a child. She's a good woman. So the first fairy spoke and she says, you shall have a child. Tall and handsome and smart. And the second fairy said, yes, and he will be good. He will be good to his parents. He will be good to his mother. And do many wonderful things. And the third fairy said, well, he will have a pig's skin and a pig's snout. And he will waddle around in the mud and the dirt just like a pig. And when the princess woke up, she went back to the palace, but in a few days or weeks, she kind of felt different. She had become pregnant. And oh, they were so happy. The whole palace was happy. The queen is pregnant. The queen is going to have a baby. And when the time came and she gave birth, he looked like a pig. But oh, she loved him with his pig snout. And she nursed him. And he grew. And as he grew, he would go out and play in the mud and get all dirty. And they would dress him in the finest clothes. And he would go out and be in the mud and dirt and be dirty. And oh my gosh, it was horrible. And then he would come home and lay on his mother, all her beautiful clothes. Now the king says we ought to get rid of this baby. We need to kill him. But the queen, that was her baby. You cannot kill my baby. And every day he would come home the same way. And as he grew, it was just worse. Dirtier, muddier, and she would take him in her arms and love him. And one day he had his head on her lap, and he said, Mother, I want to get married. His mother said, well, who's going to marry you? You're so dirty. Who's going to marry you? He says, Mother, I want to marry. Well, where will I find a bride for you? Mother, I want to marry. Please. And there was this old woman that lived in a village not far from them. It had 3 daughters. Of course, 3 daughters. And they were all beautiful. And the queen heard of this woman. And she went to her and said, Please, could your oldest daughter marry my son? And the woman said, What? No, please. You will be rich. My husband and I will give you anything. Please. So she sent her daughter, and her daughter was willing to marry the pig prince. so she saw he wallowed in the mud and he was dirty every day, and he'd come home and he would be dirty. And he was coming to her bed. And she said, before he gets in this bed, I'm going to kill him. And he heard her. And when he came into the bedchamber, he took his foot and he beat her to death. And when the queen came the next morning and saw that her son had killed his wife, she was furious. How could you do this? How could you kill your wife? And the pig said, if I had not, she would have killed me. Oh. And back he went. And back he went, wallowing in the mud, as they took the young woman back to her mother. And the pig prince came back and said, Mommy, I want to marry. Please, I want to marry. She said, you cannot marry. Look what you did to the first wife. You cannot marry. I want to marry. And if you do not let me marry, I will do something terrible. I want to marry. So the queen goes back to the woman and she says, please, could you let my son marry your second daughter? This will not happen again, please. We will give you anything. And the second daughter agreed. And the same thing happened. She thought that she would get rid of the pig prince, but he beat her to it. And in the morning, when the queen came in, she found her dead. And the king said, we have to get rid of him. We have to kill him. He has murdered 2 wives. The queen said, no. Do not kill my baby. And he goes back to his mother and he says, Mother, I want to marry. No, you cannot marry. You have killed 2 wives. You cannot marry. And they went back to the same woman. And they asked for her youngest daughter, which was the most beautiful. And she quickly agreed. And they were married. And she welcomed her husband. And she fell in love with a pig prince. And they were happy. She accepted the mud and the dirt and all there was about him. And one day he said, I have a secret to tell you. And you cannot tell anyone. And she says, okay, what is the secret, husband? What is the secret? And he slowly took off the pig skin and dropped it to the floor. And there stood a handsome prince who went to bed with her, and they were happy, and she was happy, and they had a child, the most beautiful child. And she could keep the secret no longer. And one day she was with the queen, and she says, I have a secret to tell you, but you must not tell my husband that I let you know. The queen says, what is it? What is it? She says, I am married to the most handsome man. The queen looked at her. He says, at night, he takes off the pig skin and drops it to the floor. He is a beautiful prince. If you do not believe me, come. At night when we are sleeping, you will see the skin on the floor. So that night, the king and the queen went to their bedchamber, and they peeked in the door, and they saw the pig skin on the floor, and they saw their handsome son. And they called the servants, and they took the pig skin out, and she had it burnt. And when they arose in the morning, there was no pig skin. And there he stood, a handsome prince who never saw the pig skin again. And they lived happily ever after. Thank you. So that is the story of the pig prince. There are lots of stories. These stories that I've told you basically were for adults. Most fairy tales are for adults. They have very strong messages to them. And there's a lot of storytellers who have done a lot of research on storytelling and have found all stories are the same in all cultures, just told in a different way. There are no new stories under the sun. So, I hope you enjoyed those stories. I hope you come back next week and hear more stories that I hope to have for you. And remember, read a little, write a little. Dream big. Open a book. Read. It's a wonderful world. And I'll see you next week. Bye now.